He's absolutely Jason, he's absolutely gay. He'll absolutely brighten up the darkest rainy day. He's funny and loves movies, he's smart and he's a Jew. He's an actor and an activist and wants to hear from you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Absolutely Jason Stuart. Today, I have a first on the show. I have a manager and a producer, manager extraordinaire to some of the top comedians in Hollywood, who has procured their careers into starring in movies and stand-up specials. My God, so many. And also the former producer of Last Comic Standing. So you sort of created that show with Jay Mohr, and I believe... I remember him saying at the Laugh Factory one day, and I was sitting there with him, he says, I want to do a show that is Big Brother meets Star Search. And we met, this is the first time I remember meeting you. I had wanted to audition for Last Comic Standing. It was probably around, I think it was 2004 or 5. And I went in line like everyone else. And I thought, well, I guess this is what I got to do. And you saw me in line and said, what are you doing here? And you pulled me up in the front, and you treated me like... I was somebody, and I always remembered that because it was so kind and so generous.
You are absolutely Jason Stuart. You're not maybe Jason Stuart. You're absolutely. Of course I pulled you through the line. You didn't belong with the person dressed in the bird suit and the guy dressed as the giant egg.
No. And I went up for the show 3 times and had different experiences each time and didn't get very far. And it was certainly an interesting experience, and I've talked about it, but I don't. It's not about me. It's about you. So
it's always about you, Jason.
No, it is not.
That's why this podcast is here. It's about you. It's absolutely Jason Stewart.
Do you know why it's called Absolutely Jason Stewart?
You're a vodka drinker? I have no idea.
Because I wanted, when they listed the show alphabetically, I wanted to be A rather than S or a J.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I had all these kids that I mentor. I said, give me a name that I can put right before that starts with an A or B.
I knew I should have done AAA industry standard.
Yes, exactly. So how did you start being a manager? Where did you start? I don't really know that story.
Oh, God. I hope you're, well, I'll tell the story, and then you can wake up your audience.
Okay.
I started in comedy, first of all.
As a stand-up?
Everybody, yes, as a stand-up.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So everybody has their own stories of how things happen and why they happen. My dad passed away when I was 4, and when I was a teenager, I would explore in the basement of what was down there. And I pried open an old file cabinet that had albums in it, and they were all black albums.
Red Fox?
Believe it or not, there were no comedy albums of black people, but they were all black artists like Dinah Washington, Nat King Cole, the Supremes,
Temptations,
Louis Armstrong, those kind of things from the 60s and 50s. But there were 3 albums of white artists. It was Jonathan Winter's Comedy and Tragedy, Smothers Brothers, the one where he breaks the guitar over his head, Crabs Walk Sideways and Lobsters Walk Straight. And the 3rd album was the Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart. And I didn't have a record player, so I had to do something that people my age who are listening to the show will understand, but people younger won't. When you went to the supermarket when you were a kid back then, for every $1 you spent or your family spent, you would get 1 green stamp.
Oh my God, that's how my mother bought her best dishes.
That's
right. The one she threw at my father when they got divorced.
Yeah, so...
blue chip stamps.
I bought a record player with S&H green stamps.
And green stamps, yeah.
And,
we had the blue chip stamps.
And I started playing the albums, and I really connected with Bob Newhart. The driving instructor routine was the one that I really connected with. And for those in your audience who don't know, Bob Newhart had a very unique style of comedy. He did what I would call dialogue comedy, where he would create the picture like Vin Scully of what was happening, and then he would do it. But he would never imitate the people. Like, you know how sometimes you see comedians and they imitate every character. He wouldn't do that. So
the closest one today, I think, is Louis Anderson, who creates those pictures.
Yeah,
and he plays the characters a little.
Absolutely, and props to Louis Anderson for winning the Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Congratulations, Louis. We love you. Anyway, so this thing, Ellen DeGeneres, if you ever saw her do Conversations with God,
Right.
that bit, it's a similar thing. So this routine, I bet I can remember the first 30 seconds. So let me see if I can, and again, you'll wake your audience up. So it starts off where Bob Newhart would say, I want to tell you about a group of people that go to work every day, and they don't know if they're going to come home at night. And I'm talking about America's driving instructors. So picture a car here. I'm the driving instructor, and seated next to me is a woman driver. Now, back then, a woman driver was like a stereotype of comedians saying it, maybe an Asian driver or something like that. And then he would start. Now, keep in mind, this wasn't like the kind of comedy that you see today where a comedian goes on and people are giving applause breaks and jumping up and down. And it was like a kind of like light titter kind of comedy. It wasn't that kind of like, but it was really interesting. And he would start the bit off. He'd say, okay, I'm the driving instructor, and seated next to me is
they're
the
showing
woman driver. And then he'd go into it. He'd be like, oh, hello, Mrs. Your name is Mrs. Webb, right? Just let me read down here and familiarize myself with your case. Your driving instructor was Mr. Adams. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, just let me read down here. How fast were you going when Mr. Adams jumped from the car? 75. And where was that, Mrs. Webb? In your driveway. And that's how he would do the
Did you see what you just did?
No.
You did the little hesitate thing that he does. His style was
and so that's how I started.
Oh, my God.
And that's the thing. And then I wanted to do comedy, so I went to Boston University. And I'm sorry, I'm getting, because I got to jam this in for you.
No,
It's
go
a
ahead,
really
please.
interesting thing, I think. So I go to Boston University. There's a blizzard in 1978, a federal emergency. There are no cars on the road. And for those of you who've ever been to Boston, in Kenmore Square, where BU is, there's three main streets that come off. There's Brookline Avenue, where Fenway Park is. There's Beacon Street, where all the colleges are, Simmons, Simmons, and then the other side is Commonwealth Avenue with BU, BC farther on. And so I'm right in the heart of Kenmore Square. No cars, no people. It's midnight, Saturday night. There's nothing. Snowbanks high. I hear laughter. I'm like, this is weird. I look around, and a bar that is still there today, and this is what's so crazy and ironic. Name of the place? Crossroads. I walk up the stairs slowly. You know how stairs, long stairway, you walk and you're facing a stair, and then you come up and you see the bottom of people's feet, and you see a little bit more. And I get up, there's about 30 people there, and on stage is a guy that looks like a young Larry from the Three Stooges. He's got his foot on a chair, he's got a guitar, and he's strumming it, and he's singing, "Rachel, my dear, wish you were here. Having sex with Rachel was amazing."
oh my God, look.
Yep, that's it. It was like a concert. Frisbees would be flying around the room. Beach balls would hit you in the head. And every time Rachel wanted more, she'd light a match. And then he just said, thanks, good night, walked past me out. I'm like, I run down on the street, gone. Like, I go back up, who was that guy? Who was that guy? I got to know who that guy was. That was Stephen Wright.
Oh my God.
So my first comedian I ever saw in my life live was Stephen Wright. Became very friendly with him. And then I signed up for an open mic night there. And I did comedy there, and I did my open mic. And this is another thing that I learned for your audience, which you'll find funny about. So I just swam in a championship. I had a shaved head. I was pretty cut up. And the guy, this big guy called the taxi driver, Ross Bickford, he introduces me. This is how he introduces me. I know this has happened to you. And pardon me for saying this,
no,
but
you
it's
can
like,
say anything you want.
so he says, this next guy I'm going to introduce, I don't know him. All I know is he's a funny gay guy. Please, now before I introduce you, I should tell you, I got that wrong. He's not funny. Please welcome Barry Katz. And I go up, I'm eviscerated my first time on stage, but I go on and I say some joke about him. Yeah, we had a great time last night. You called me. And I go into, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present a routine that means a lot to me. It's from Bob Newhart from 1959.
Oh
the
my
driving
God.
instructor.
So you did his bit.
And I told the audience, this is the bit I want to do for them as an homage to Bob Newhart. I do it. It kills. I mean, it kills harder than the recording of Bob Newhart by 10 times. I'm like, holy shit, this is incredible. This is great. I walk down. This guy chases after me. This huge guy. I'm scared of this guy. He's like, hey, Barry, what's going on, man? You got to come back here. What? I just want to give you some words of advice from one comic to the other. I said, yeah, what do you got for me? He said, listen, when you're doing somebody else's bit, don't say their name. Just take the fucking bit.
Oh, my God.
Just steal the bit and do it.
Oh, my God. That's awful.
And so that's when I knew, go back, write some new material. And then I went back to a place that was a historic place called the Ding Ho in Inman Square, Cambridge, where Stephen Wright, Lenny Clark, Bob Goldthwait, so many people started. And then I went and did my first open mic there with Lenny Clark on the bill from Rescue Me, and he's a great actor, great comedian. And I go and I do my original material there again. Kills. My second time on stage, it's killing. I'm humble. I just walk out again. Another large man chasing me down the street. Katsy, Katsy. It's Lenny Clark. I'm like, Jesus, Lenny, what's up, man? Listen, where did you come from, man? You got to come back here. You got to open my show next week. I'm like, and I didn't know anything about comedy. I'm like, Lenny, I don't think I can write 5 new minutes by next week. And he looked at me, and this is how I knew the other side of comedy. He's like, you dumb Jew bastard. You stupid kike. You fucking heeb. Just get back here, do the same material, and don't worry about it.
That's what he said to
Yeah.
me.
So I come back.
That's so Boston.
I do the.
It's so Boston.
I do the
For
same.
those at home, in those days, there was no God. But it was done in, it's hard to believe, but it was done in a sense of love. And I know,
Yeah. So I
Lenny.
do the same bit the next week. I noticed there's the same people in the crowd. I completely bomb. I'm devastated, and then I just go back to the drawing board again. But that's how I started comedy. And then in terms of getting into business, I started running comedy clubs in New England. I took over a comedy club called Play It Again Sam's, which was the kind of like the Comedy Cellar of Boston, a hangout for all the comedians that is in New York, the Comedy Cellar. And it was amazing, and I ran that for 8 years, and then I moved to New York. My wife passed away. She was 23, and I just said, you know, I got to get out of here because...
that changes you.
Well, the reason why it changes you, this is the most interesting thing about life, I find, is the positive, negative people and the positive, negative experience of your life, and I'll explain. So when tragedy happens in your life, a lot of people, they don't know how to handle things. So they just kind of disappear, and they don't know what to say. But then there's the people who know what to say, but every time you see them, they hug you. How are you, Barry? You doing okay? What can I do for you? Which is wonderful. But every time you see them, it's a reminder of what happened. So I knew I had to get out of there. And so one day, even though I had 50 comedy clubs all over New England I tell my people, you book, you do those things, and I'm going to go to New York. And I got in my car one day. This day I just told them, I just got in my car, and I drove to New York. I got off at the 79th Street boat basin exit. I drove west. I hit a bar at 72nd and I think some cross street there at Broadway. I went into the bar. There was a phone book and a pay phone. I looked at real estate agents. I called. I waited by the phone. The first person called. First apartment they showed me, 82nd, West 82nd Street, near where Seinfeld famously lives by Central Park. $935 for a studio loft. I took it. First, last, and security. And I was in New York, living in New York. I went down to the Village. I knew Eddie Brill was leaving.
Eddie Brill, for those who don't know, is a comedian who also booked the David Letterman show for a million years.
Yes.
He was booked the comedian specifically.
I knew he was leaving this spot on West 3rd Street that he had called the Paper Moon. I went down, talked to the owner. I said, listen, I'd like to make this into a comedy club. I can do this. I've always been successful. Just give me it. You take the bar and the food. I'll take the door, and I'll never let you down. They gave me the club. I named it the Boston Comedy Club, and it was there for 17 years. And my whole goal there was to give young people stage time and to start my management company, because I knew nobody was going to want to be managed by me because I hadn't done anything. So I had to represent teenagers, but I knew I had a good eye for talent. And my first 8 clients were like Chappelle, Louis C.K., Jay Mohr, Anthony Clark, Nick DiPaolo. I worked with Bill Burr. I worked with Wanda Sykes. I worked with Daryl Hammond, Jim Brewer.
Wow.
And
with all that, we've got to take a break. We're going to be back in just a second here with Barry Katz taking us down memory lane, certainly from the 80s in comedies. For me, it's fascinating. We'll be back in just a second. Please stay with us and don't change that channel. Oh, my God, we don't have channels anymore.
Fantastic.
Did you know that 67% of American women are size 14 and above?
You mean they look like this?
Yeah, girl.
So then where are we in television and film?
And where are we in fashion magazines and clothing stores?
Yeah.
So we want to help out entertainment and fashion and media.
Catch the F up.
Watch us on Plus This
Live
every Thursday
at 7 p.m.
on Senate TV.
Hi, I'm Moxie.
And I'm Nicole, and we're the ladies of Suicide Girls Radio, the world's leading BYOB radio show. Pour a glass of your favorite tipple and tune in on Wednesday nights between 8 and 9 p.m. as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of free nipples. Or just flash it would be kind of funny, wouldn't it? People think flashing your tits is easy, right? And it's actually kind of hard.
Do you have an amazing Lemmy story for me?
An amazing one? Everything he does is amazing. The guy puts snarl in the metal. Come on.
Big heart. Love that guy. That guy was the real deal in every way.
Lemmy was just a class act.
So thank you, Lemmy.
No way I was gonna miss tonight's tribute to the Lemmeister, man.
Let's hear it for Lemmy!
Scream for Lemmy!
Can you feel the energy in the room? Lemmy lives on.
God bless Lemmy, and he will live on through all of us.
To the spirit and memory of Lemmy! Long live Lemmy, my brothers and sisters.
And we're back at Absolutely Jason Stuart with my guest, manager extraordinaire and producer Barry Katz. So tell me this. This is what I'm fascinated about. What makes you pick somebody that you think is going to have a future, and who have you been right about and who have you been wrong about? That's what I'm fascinated by.
I was wrong about you.
Really?
You're successful.
And you didn't think I would be? That's
No,
very
I didn't.
sweet.
It's not that I didn't think you would be. I just thought that I couldn't be the guy who took you to the promised land.
That's a very sweet thing to say. Man, wow, I didn't expect that. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were, honestly. I think it's also because I was one of the first people to do this in the mainstream. There were other people that did it out of mainstream that were very successful. The Suzanne Westenhoffers, the Kay Clintons, Bob Smith and the Funny Gay Males, all those guys, they did a lot. I mean, there were a lot of very success. Alec Mapa certainly did it within. I just wasn't that kind of act.
I just don't, I'm probably going to go toe to toe with you here, and you're probably going to be upset about it. But I just don't understand what is there anybody who is a gay comedian, actor, performer that just performs like they're clear, in other words, there's no reference to whether they're gay, straight, or that they fuck armadillos. It's like whatever it is that just.
I know, I got you, but I put it,
just like a straight.
I put it back to you. Are there any straight comedians that don't talk about their personal life at all? Very few.
Of course.
Very few. Most of them talk about wives, girlfriends, children. You talk about your experience in life.
No, but you can find at least 10%, 20%, 30%.
I don't see a lot of them.
Like, for instance, Dave Chappelle. He's not talking about his personal life. He's talking about the experiences of his culture. You watch Killing Me Softly, and Christ, he does a 15-minute bit about the crack baby on the diaper.
Oh, there's Dave. And there's Jeffrey.
Wow.
But being gay...
That's Jordan Rubin next to Dave Chappelle.
That's who that is, Jordan Rubin. Okay.
And that's Jeffrey Ross, the roast master. And that's me at the Comedy Cellar at the Olive Tree upstairs. Wow. Then
I say to you, I didn't even know we were going to get into this, but do you think that this is your own internal homophobia, that you treat gay people differently than you would straight people in terms of comedy? Because they say the same thing about women. Why do they have to talk about being a woman? And this is a white heterosexual, boy business. It is a boys club, very big time. And because you are who you are, you don't see it.
That's an interesting thing you're saying.
I'm saying with all due respect, but I do believe that because I look at Paul Reiser, Larry Miller, the one who was Rich Scheider. Boys do this, girls do that. Bill Burr his whole thing is about men.
Yeah, but then you look at Jerry, and you could Seinfeld. You could probably look at 3-hour specials, and there's not one reference to a relationship.
No, and you have no idea who this man is.
Well, I know that he's the most successcul comedian that I've ever known in my entire life in terms of longevity.
Yes, and I'm just talking about personal preference in what I like. I like my favorite comedians: Joan Rivers, Don Rickles, Lily Tomlin. He certainly was the most creative of all.
Well, what's interesting is your favorite comedians, 2 of them are insult comedians.
I guess so, yeah.
That's their whole main thing was shitting on people.
Well, I don't see it that way.
Well, how do you see it? I mean, if Don Rickles were sitting right here, he'd say his whole shtick, his whole lane is the stardom that he got from having the balls to shit on people.
Frank Sinatra.
Same with Joan Rivers, to take down people who were bigger than she was.
I think what they were doing is they were making commentary because they were different. And I think because you are, where you sit in the room as a person in your life, blonde, obviously you were, what you tell me, you were a knockout as a kid.
A knockout?
You said you had this great
body.
Oh,
no. Knockout and me go together like the words Kmart quality. No,
well, but still, you were a guy that, obviously, how many wives have you had? Okay. So obviously who you were and where you sat in the room.
How many husbands have you had?
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, nothing has worked out. So we can go toe-to-toe on that.
Hey, listen, we have a lot in common.
Yes, we do, more than you think. But I think where you sit in the room is what you talk about in comedy. And I think that what Don Rickles specifically did is he took on Frank Sinatra, who everybody was going, oh my God, it's Frank that nobody wanted to do. So what he did is it's very Jewish. He busted the balls of people and he sort of told some truths about what we were all thinking about something that you didn't want to say. And what was really wonderful, and still is because he's still alive, I'm talking about him like he's dead, but is that there is such a warmth about him. And same thing with Joan. There was an underneath of so warm and it was a kindness. And I have to tell you, I met Joan several times, and one of the nicest people that you would ever meet.
Absolutely.
But so funny in terms of truth-telling. So I don't call it insults. I call it truth-telling in a funny way, the things you're always thinking. I sort of love that kind of comedy.
But I like the fact that you asked me if I'm a homophobic. Because
not homophobic. I said the thinking was homophobic. I don't think you're a homophobic person, but I think the thinking is that way because that's the way you were raised, and everything is from your point of view. You're not sitting in my shoes. You don't walk into a room and have people dismiss you at a young age because of who you were and weren't even interested in talking to you and just decided, get go. This is not going to happen. I'm not the one to do this, guy. Ta-da. I don't mean to hit you on the head, but that's what happens. So when you come from that place in your life, you want to put things, so your comedy does come from that because you want to sort of, make fun of the things that you've experienced. And that's what's experienced in my life. Our lives have been very different in terms of what we've experienced.
I think you're right in a sense that maybe I do feel, it doesn't matter if it's a heterosexual comic or who's a male or a female comic or a gay a male or female comic. I do tend not to get as, I don't know, because I'm just one guy. I'm just one opinion of things. It's
well,
like
it's
it
like
doesn't
food, isn't it? Comedy it's like food.
Yeah,
whatever
so
tastes good to you.
whatever I like, it means nothing for anybody. It's just for me what I feel. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but
No.
I think that I do tend to gravitate towards a very uniquely authentic formula in comedy versus one that I see.
Look at the list here of people. Jay Mohr.
Jay Mohr.
Total straight guy.
Yeah.
Sports, wife, kids.
Yeah.
Bill Bellamy, girls, girls, girls. Such a sexy man and always talks about it. Alex Thomas, funniest guy I've ever met. I just worked with him recently at the Ha-Ha. So hysterical. Brad Williams.
Little man Brad Williams.
But total sex. Always about sex. Always about that. I mean, and you do have Anthony Clark, which I can't say anything about. But,
Yeah, so these are like
You
a
do-
cross-section
but-
of some people that, like you said, like...
And
in-
certainly
in
the most popular comedian I think you ever had, I mean, in terms of astronomically changed the business, was Dane Cook.
Dane Cook.
And I worked
again.
with Dane for 10 years at the Laugh Factory.
And he loved
him.
working with you. You
Did
know
it?
why he loved working with you?
No.
Because when he went on, you never complained about following him, and you always followed him just as strongly as he could ever imagine.
Well, I just thought it's my job. I'm lucky to be there. You know what I mean? I'm lucky. I was one of the only gay guys for a long time that worked in the mainstream comedy clubs all the time. And I mean, believe me, I had my bad nights.
I don't remember them.
But that's very kind of you.
But I think you're. But I think you're right about something with me. You I know you weren't trying to, but as I analyze myself, I think to myself, part of me does like. I don't know. Part of me does get sort of turned off by the formula of the gay conversation, or the formula of the female conversation, or even the formula with certain heterosexual comics of just the formula of the, what it's like when a guy and a girl get together and this happens and when you do this and you turn the girl around and
Right.
I get turned off by all the formula stuff. Now you might say some of the people that I work with have different formulas and I'm a hypocrite, but I always felt that I love the authenticity of the content and the voice of a certain artist, because if you have a voice as an artist, you as a comedian, it's almost like name that tune. You can name that voice in like 3 seconds.
How did you know about Dane Cook? Because I always thought he was terrific, but I never would have seen this kind of astronomically just going into the stratosphere. I mean, when the MySpace thing, I always think, to me, it was two things. Number one, he was funny. Number two, he was so physical, which meant that his physical behavior surpassed different kinds of, he wouldn't have to hit a kind of group because everybody knew physical behavior. And the second thing was, he was like the first guy to take social media and ruined it for all of us. You know what I mean? Because we all had to start doing it.
And he doesn't get enough credit for it, and I feel humbled that he gave me the opportunity to help him with that world, because I knew nothing about that world.
He started in, what was it, 2004?
But he told me, he said, we have to do this. We have to get into this, and I honestly asked him. I have no idea. Normally.
Did you tell him, like, this is ridiculous?
Normally, no, I didn't tell him it was ridiculous. But normally, you don't, as a manager, you don't say, I have no idea about this. But I had a great relationship with him, and I said, look, I'm just being honest with you. I don't know anything about this world. I will find out everything I can about it, and we'll do it together. And I remember he asked me to hire the guy from the U.S. Army to do his website, because there were no people who did websites back then. And the U.S. Army website was the best. And I called the guy. The guy wanted $25,000.
I know, it was like insane.
And I said, and Dane said, well, that's all I have in my account. Can you negotiate with him? And I consider myself,
Can I ask what he paid for his first webs?
I'm telling you.
Oh.
So I consider myself to be a great negotiator. I failed. This guy would not budge. He says, listen, I'm not doing anything for less than $25,000, so you can find somebody else. I said, you got it. He's a young guy, whatever. No. So I ended up getting extra pages from him. I think I got 6 extra pages from him.
He paid $25,000?
All the money he had
Oh
for the
my God.
website, and that's how it started. And then Dane, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he had this amazing thing that he did where he had like a little recording thing in his office, and he would take clips of his stand-up and little clips, and he'd do a little recording, DaneCook.com, and he would release them on Napster. And he started getting people in, and he said to me when I met him, he said, I have a philosophy. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to answer the first 15,000 emails I get, and I'm going to keep doing it as much as I can, and I'm going to grow that fan base, and I'm going to create a noise in Hollywood that's so loud they will have to listen to me. I'll never forget him saying that to me. And another thing about Dane Cook that your audience should know, and you should know this,
That's
if you're
really
a person
hard
who, if you're a
work.
person who writes down what you want to do and your goals and your aspirations wherever they are in a notebook or Post-it notes, then you're on the right track. I remember the first time I helped Dane get his first apartment in L.A. and then moved him to a bigger apartment called the La Fontaine, which is at Fountain and Crescent Heights. It's a historic
Yes, I know that.
place that John Belushi, Bette Midler, Steve Martin lived. And I got him this amazing apartment with 30-foot ceilings. And I'll never forget, I walked in for the first time, and he went to the bathroom. And I was right by his office, and I did this thing that probably I'm embarrassed that I say that I did. I sort of backed into the office like you do and sort of peeked around. And I saw all these Post-it notes all over the place. And so I backed in, and I pulled one of the Post-it notes off, and it said, I'm going to do my own hour special on HBO. I pulled the other one and said, I'm going to do sitcoms where I'm the star. Pull another one. I'm going to do films for major film companies. I'm going to do Letterman multiple times. And he had all these Post-it notes and goals written down. And he accomplished every single one of them. One of them was, I'm going to work arenas as a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
And so it was really wild for me when we sold Vicious Circle, and
That was his first stand-up
that was first stand-up special. This is a guy who never worked a room, a comedy club, never worked a hard ticket room bigger than 500 people. And going into Chris Albrecht and HBO, and Chris Albrecht, now at Starz, the president of HBO, then a visionary,
Very much so.
pitched him the Tourgasm thing, which was the limited series where Dane traveled
Loved
around.
It was a great
And then at the end, the
yeah.
hour special convinced him to do Boston Garden. That was 38,000 people for a guy who never sold more than 500 tickets. And I want to tell your audience something, how social media worked for Dane Cook and how he started it. When that thing went on sale, we had a code for him only. Before it went on sale anywhere else, before there was any ad, and he pressed a button. I saw him. He pressed a button with the announcement of Boston Garden, the first show. It sold out in 2.5 days before anybody had a chance for his fans. We rolled it over for the second show, put the code in again, pressed it again. That sold out in 8 days. So in 11 days, he sold about 40,000 tickets, and it never went on sale to the public. The promoter never put an ad in a newspaper, a website, a radio, nothing.
Wow.
For a guy who never did anything, and that was amazing.
Why do you think that there was a backlash against him? I never understood that.
Well,
honestly,
I
because
think
it's not my style as a person. I think if somebody does well, you know, even if it, and I'm not saying Dane, if it isn't my type of comedy, I can look at Seinfeld, not my kind of comedy, but I think he's brilliant. You know, I can see certain comedians, I go, okay, that's, you know, I can see what somebody else sees them. I see them as an artist. But for some reason, there's been a backlash, and I don't know. There was, and I don't know if it's there anymore.
I think everybody has an opinion about anything, and I think if Dane were sitting here, I think the only thing, if he could have seen the future of the comedians and how they would have a backlash against them, I'd say, and he could look into the future and say, okay, this is going to happen. What can I do that might change that result? I would say that, and I can't speak for Dane, but I'm going to try. I would say my opinion is he might say, okay, well, when I came into the club to do my sets and at the Laugh Factory, and I had to bump people, maybe I might have been thinking where should be the most appropriate place to bump somebody. Should I bump Louis C.K. or should I bump the guy who's paying his dues?
See, what I would always say to him, because I knew him so long, I'd just say, come on, don't. And he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He would just, I'd say, come on, man, you know.
But the nature of comedy...
He was always very kind to me.
Yeah, but the nature of comedy for your audience is when a big star comes into a comedy club, they bump the lineup. But sometimes people get upset at that, and when it happens over and over again, then they have to wait an hour for the guy to do. Now, sometimes you bump somebody, you do 10 minutes, you do 20, but he would consistently do a long period of time, which probably rubbed those people the wrong way. And the time and social networking, I always find this for anybody who's listening. Anything in your life that's positive that you can use to build you up can be similarly used to take you down.
And with that, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back here with Barry Katz, an incredibly interesting conversation. We'll be back in just a second. Please stay with us.
And it's Mary Carey, of course, Politically Naughty with Mary Carey.
I'm always naughty. I'm always politically. My behavior is always politically
naughty.
I'm never politically correct. Dr. Drew, hi. Oh, I'm so.
Hey guys, how are you?
It's all teary-eyed, Doctor.
I know. She wished she could live at rehab.
But only if Dr. Drew's there. Obviously, if someone like, you know, because a little too groping might be inappropriate, but I like the flirting and stuff.
When I walked in, you shoved my head in your.
No! Are you gonna sue me?
Get Politically Naughty with Mary Carey, Mondays at 4 p.m.
I'm Money B, and you can kiss my ass.
Let me swallow my snot.
That's sexy.
Keep up the good work, mild net. Ah!
Let me see how I'm coming. Check out.
No, I love you.
Oh yeah, why no cyclocyanabin, the little.
Do you take one? There you go.
Always switching up. Always switching up.
What was that?
It's my wedding band. Jumped out my. Oh my God! I hope it's on Omen. Call my wife.
He keeps moving away.
Hi, I'm Rob Schneider, and you're watching T Hollywood V.
Z Hollywood TV.
Dang! Dango bang! A dango bang!
Nailed it.
So we're back here with Barry Katz on Absolutely Jason Stuart. We're talking
And maybe Barry Katz.
Did I say maybe?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no, stop that. I think you.
I love your staff here. They're awesome. I wish there was a camera on them. They have a lot of charisma.
Aren't they sweet? I would love it, but we have this wall here, and we've talked to them before, but nobody at home can see them.
That's too bad because they're very good looking. It's like
they're adorable.
It's incredible. It's like the Charisma Twins. It's fantastic.
They're very, very sweet looking. Yes.
She gave me sign language, which is good. I know sign.
Well, we
language.
have a whole thing of how to communicate because it's not a big enough studio to have the. It doesn't matter, but I always go. So if anybody sees me going like this, that's why. So what I'm always fascinated about being a manager is who you picked and who, because you said nothing's off the table. So who you picked? I mean, you're obviously no longer with Dane.
Yes.
Yeah, and you handled Whittney Cummings for a while.
Whittney Cummings through the 3 television shows,
Yeah,
and then the hour specials.
Wow. So you really created some stars, and I always believe, Joan Rivers had something, or was it Joan Rivers or Dave? In her book, she says you only need one person to change your career, somebody that believes in you, and that's the way it works. Basically, I believe that very, very strongly, and that's the way it happens.
And I don't, it's weird. I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. There's a lot of things I do wrong. There's a lot of things about myself I don't like.
We all
There's
make
a lot
mistakes.
of qualities that but one thing that no one will ever be able to say that I don't have, thankfully, is an eye for talent. So I've always been able to identify people who I think can be big stars, and I always feel like I know the formula to get them where they want to go. I've never had a problem with that. If there's somebody who, I'm granted there's people who don't get there as quickly as they want to and get frustrated and it doesn't work out. There's people that I work with for a long. I'll give you an example. Like, I think this is a good example. I work with Melissa Villasenor, a young impressionist who just got Saturday Night Live for probably 8 years, and she tested for SNL twice, tested for a bunch of different shows. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. The stars didn't align. Well, we stopped working together, and 2 years later, she just got SNL.
Good for
So,
her.
and I'm really happy for her. I'm really excited for her. Now, you might think, God, Barry, you must be crushed or you must be upset. No, I mean, I want her to do well. And when I was doing it with her, there were the opportunities, great opportunities happen, but the stars just didn't align.
But it's also about what's happening in the moment. I believe that because that's, and I, just when you, even with myself or with other people that I know that I've been very friendly with, there's just there's a time for you.
Yeah.
It's certainly there was, like Ellen came out 20 years ago. It's 20 years, 96. And certainly, who would think that at that time that she'd have the biggest talk show on television? I don't think anybody, maybe Jimmy Kimmel is as successful as she is, but those are two of the biggest talk shows on TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's great,
and she's
that
beloved.
And that excites me. When I found out about Melissa, I hope she doesn't mind me saying, I texted her right away. Because I really genuinely feel I want these people to win. Like, if they win with me, that's great. If it goes for 25 years, that's great. If it doesn't, that's the way it's supposed to be.
And you also handled Ant, the comedian. So
I
you did, right? So you did. So I don't want people to think that you didn't support other gay people, and you basically made him a star. I mean,
I tried.
I
tried, but some people complicate winning, and,
right?
And they have their own thing that they have to work on and deal with, and.
But you gave him he had his own special.
Yes.
He had his own
I
TV
did
show
his
and
hour
logo.
special.
And
I did the TV show and logo, yeah.
You really, really...
And I love that show on logo, and I was very disappointed when that got canceled because I thought that was really special.
It was called Ant Across America, where he would go to different towns.
And he was great on it. He was really
I think he's a
great.
great host. Oh, there he is, yes. Wonderful. And we're very friendly still.
Awesome.
Over the years.
Tell him I said hi.
I definitely will. So I just don't want people to think that you weren't in support of gay people. I just think sometimes it's a point of view, and life is a birds of a feather. You have to have an experience that makes you feel closer to something. And
when you invited me here, I immediately wanted to come. I mean, I didn't.
I was surprised, honestly.
Really?
I just put a list together and I sent out an email to people that I really dig and think they're interesting and I want to know more about. I mean, this show.
I don't mind being your 700th choice. It's good.
No, I mean, I didn't use, this is new for me, like in your format, I never had producers or managers on. I would just have singers, actors, and comedians.
Well, that's because people like me are boring.
Usually. So, but you're an interesting guy, and every time I've ever called you and asked for advice and occasionally you've given me a little bit of a hard time, because you're like, oh, what's this about?
I have no filter when it comes to what I believe, because as a manager, basically I'm paid for one thing, my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
But I do, and I respect it honestly, and I respect what you've accomplished in the business and how you've accomplished it, and I do respect that kind of things. I also, you've kept Jay Mohr, who I think is a wonderful actor, who's had quite a couple. Really, you've been with him since the beginning.
Yeah, 25 years.
Wow, that says something.
Yeah. It's exciting. You want to represent everybody when they're in a wheelchair. You want to do that, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't, and that's just the way it is. And so you hope we have the best intentions, and you do everything you can as best as you can for as long as you can. But if it doesn't work, and there's somebody out there that can do it better, or do maybe create something that's a little bit different vibe than you have, then I would support them finding that.
Well, Brad Williams, who I've had on the show,
I love
is
Brad.
a phenomenon.
And I met Brad.
I've had him on the show here, and
he came in my office, and I immediately wanted to work with him. And again, at the time when I met him, I think that, he would say that he knew he was a guy who can always go on, get the best response, get standing ovations. And I saw him as a guy who could change the face of comedy and change the way people think about things. I love him. I love him as a person. I love his act. He just did his third special for Showtime in 3 years, and just booked a movie with
I saw it.
Christopher Guest, Mascots.
I saw it
on Netflix. So, and now he's doing another movie in New York. So I'm really proud of him. I'm excited. His road shows are huge, and again. For all of you who know about comedy and don't know about comedy, what you don't know, all you know is the content you see. What you don't know is what the person is. And I will tell you from all of my years of experience, there is no finer person in this business than Brad Williams, one of the nicest guys in the world that I've ever met in my life.
Wow. More than Jay Mohr?
Well, Jay Mohr would be the first one to come here and say that he's had a reputation as a guy who goes back and forth. He can be like one of the most supportive, nicest guys, but other times he says he comes across as a lovable asshole, like the Jerry Maguire character.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you're lumped into that, you don't really know how to come out of it the way you're supposed to do. But,
you know what's interesting about stuff like that?
But I will say this before you say that. Jay Mohr, Bert Kreischer, Ralphie May, so many people he brought on the road with him and supported and pushed. These people were getting standing ovations before him. And, most comics want to make it easy on themselves. Who wants to have Ralphie May or Bert Kreischer getting a standing ovation before you? But he loved these guys, and so he's always
Dane
been
was the
supportive.
same way. He brought people. He brought terrific. He had Sebastian, and he had Robert Kelly. And
Absolutely. Love Sebastian.
Yeah, just completely. Who do you think that you think still has more time to go? That you just think something will happen with. You know what I mean? That you're working with.
I think that of a lot of people. I think first of all, I know I'm talking a lot about Brad Williams. I'm sorry.
No.
But I think Brad Williams is a guy who's going to really become a huge star in the business, not just as an actor, but also as a person doing stand-up. I think he's going to.
Well, he already has as a stand-up. He's one of the.
But I mean, he's not like, at the level that you would say, like, let's say, Louis C.K. or Dane Cook was, but he will. I think he will be. I think people.
Well, he hasn't had the television exposure.
I know,
yet.
So that's gonna. I think that would happen that way. There's people that I really think are wonderful. I don't want to mention so many of them because then the other ones will be bummed out if I don't mention them. But I think on my podcast that I do in my spare time, Industry Standard, I think I really talk about the journey, and I really talk about how people can get to the next level. And I wanted to share this with you because I think it's really important, because it's a metaphor for everybody out there in your audience. some things happen. You don't know why they happen. Jay Mohr asked me to be the first guest on his podcast. I told him I didn't want to be. He said, be in my garage at 7. I do the show. It's the #1 show in the world that day. 550,000 people listen to it, and I'm the recipient of this audience. And so producers tell him, he says, will you do my 3rd show? I said, no, it's not for me. I've never done it before. Book somebody else. He said, be at my garage at 7. I did the 3rd show, the 10th show, the 18th show, the 25th show, and by a short period of time, over 3 million people had downloaded these podcasts that I've been on. I never did interviews before like that.
And then everybody and their mother wants you to manage them.
Yeah, and then they want me to do a podcast. And I asked managers, agents, everybody, lawyers, should I do this? I'm worried about it. They all said, no, don't do it. But I thought to myself, I want to do something where I talk to network presidents, studio executives, comedians who've executive produced big projects. Because when I sit in the room with Chris Albrecht or Doug Herzog or Steve Levitan or Judd Apatow, when I leave and get in my car, I think to myself, I can't believe I was the only one in that meeting, and we sat for 90 minutes. So I asked Doug Herzog, who's the president of Viacom Entertainment Group, overseeing Comedy Central and Spike and TV Land and all these things. He accepted. Once I had him, I was able to get all these network presidents, studio heads. I just did Gary Marshall's last interview he ever did. I did Kevin Hart, which is coming out
He's getting
October
his own.
10th.
He's starting his own network.
Yeah, so I've done so many different things, and it's all about their journey from humble beginnings to how they got to the next level. And it's so simple to get. You just go on iTunes, you subscribe, and I guarantee you this podcast will change your life forever. And I tell you this because if you can get past the sound of my own voice, I don't know why things happen the way they do. I don't know why out of 375,000 podcasts, this podcast is always in the top 500. I don't know why. I'm not a household name, but this inspirational journey that you get from how you start, all the ups and downs, and how you fight through and get to the next level is what it's all about what I anticipate. And when I look at an artist, I want to see an artist who I believe has the emotional intelligence and the intellectual intelligence and the creative intelligence to be tremendous. Because, look, if you're a singer, clearly you can find your way somewhere. It's hard, but Christ, there's all these shows everywhere you go. You can do things. But if you're a comedian, content is so important of how great you are. And if you do great content, singers may never make it. Yeah, the Grace VanderWaal on America's Got Talent, she'll make it and win it. But there's thousands and thousands of singers, and there'll be great singers in Peoria, Illinois that'll just never make it. But if you're a comedian and you're doing stand-up like Chris Rock or Chappelle or CK, and you're working in a bathroom in Bangkok with a megaphone, they will find you and chase you like your ass is on fire, and you will make it. Every comedian that asks me, how do I make it? I always say, find your home club. Kill 10 times in a row at your home club, to where if anonymously we polled every audience member, they would say you were the best. Every barback would say you're the best. Every manager, every waitress, every comedian that hates you would say you were the best that night. If you do that 10 times in a row, get a fucking helmet, because you're making it.
I can't agree with you more.
And so that's the thing, when Dane Cook was coming into the Laugh Factory, there's certain guys, they have this thing. George Lopez is another guy like this. They walk on stage, and in 30 seconds, a 18-wheel truck could fall through the ceiling in the back of the room, and you wouldn't hear it. They just have this thing where they go on in 30 seconds. People are like applauding and going fucking crazy. And there's a few people out there like that. We all know who they are, and they have that ability, that skill to it's a natural ability to galvanize an audience
together. But I
together.
do think there's other elements in it.
Of course.
And I'm on the other side of that. I think there are other elements in it.
The material is
it's also who
key.
The people. This as we go back to the beginning of the conversation, this is a boys' club, and it started off being a white boys' club. Then it became a Jewish boys club. Then they let in the black boys, and they let in the Latin boys, and then they let in the Middle Eastern boys. And then they sort of let in the women, but they still, there's still a thing because there's some incredible women comedians that don't.
Look, if you're a woman, and as
still
Chris Rock would say, if you're a woman and you can put together an hour of extraordinary content, you're going to be a millionaire. It's just a fact. You're going to be a millionaire.
But the boys are running it, and it's a birds of a feather. Comedy is a birds of a feather business. It's food. It's food for you. It's if it doesn't speak to you, and those are the people running it, and they're holding the keys to the gate, then it's harder.
But the last thing I want to say about this before you wrap is the content of an artist. Dave Chappelle can call up a nightclub or a theater, and he can sell it out in a day. The guy doesn't have a website. He's not on social media.
Well, his show did that for him. His TV series did that for him.
His TV show was 10 years ago.
But he seems that really. I think that was the springboard to his. Don't you think so?
The springboard to every artist is the spoken word.
Well, his show was him.
I know, but the spoken word, yes, getting on television every week will make you into a household name and a draw. But the fact is, you still have to back it up with the content of the show.
It's where talent meets
opportunity. You can be the greatest social media guy in the world. They come to your show, you suck, not coming back. And they're telling everybody on the thing that got you there that you're shit.
Right.
But you go on, it's about the content. And everybody you look at that has extraordinary original content is taking it. I always say on my podcast, if you're undeniable, you will never be denied.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for. How can people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me on
Facebook
my website. They can get a hold of me on my Facebook page. They can get a hold of me at Barry Katz at Twitter, and Industry Standard again on iTunes. Subscribe; it's free. I guarantee you.
I will definitely do that.
It will help.
I can't wait to hear it.
Thank you so much. This was such an honor, man, and I love your staff. And I love this, and it's absolutely Jason Stuart.
Well, that's Mike Zinna. I didn't pick them. Mike did, so that's my boss.
So in other words, they were forced upon you.
Definitely, but a good force.
All right.
And thanks everyone. Please take care, and I'll talk to you next week.
Take care. Thank you again.
No, we go take a picture now.
He's absolutely Jason, he's absolutely gay. He'll absolutely brighten up the darkest rainy day. He's funny and loves movies, he's smart and he's...